It has been an interesting year this year, 2024, that is, for the local real estate market in and around Salt Lake City. And the reason that I say that it's interesting, even though these things are a bit interesting, has nothing to do with highly volatile 30-year fixed rate mortgage rates, which have just been dancing up and down like 75 basis points. Has nothing to do with how sellers think it's 2021, buyers think it's 2008, and a savvy realtor's job is to close the gap between those parties. Has less to do with that and more with this year's annual, call it the bull run, sellers market conditions, call it the spring market, if you will, kicked off very, very early. I would argue back in January. And it is still technically going. Very much still our sellers market, still seeing some multiple offer situations. It's going much, much longer than we typically see. So most years we'll see that spring market last a couple of months, a few months, a little bit longer. Just to recap the past few years. I mean, going back to last year, we saw, kind of a habitual multiple offers market that lasted a month or two. We're talking about like February, March, slowed down pretty quick. 2023 was an interesting year of very, very low volume ultimately, but we did see a little bit of a peak in that spring market. Year before, 2022, that is what you are thinking of as being that gangbusters market. Guess what? That one really accelerated at the very beginning of the year in January, and that one slowed down right around May 1st. Happy to share a couple of stories with why I have that date pinpointed to such an exact date. Year before that, 2021, that's actually the example I used, the other one that everyone thinks of as the gangbusters year. Guess what? That crazy hot market kicked off in February and sure started to screech its brakes on a little bit that June. So none of these like annual bull runs, call them the spring markets, lasted quite as long as most people think they did. They did not last the whole year. Actually, the second half of 2022 was a very frustrating market, but that's not what this is about either. So, long spring market this year, still going, but starting to see some of that much needed inventory hit the market. So if you're hearing these days about how low inventory is by historic standards, that is the case by recent standards of the last half decade, say 2020 and beyond. Not so much. 2,300 plus active listings in Salt Lake County. I wouldn't call that the lowest inventory that ever happened. There is plenty out there to choose from, but demand is high enough that people are out there scooping up houses. It is not uncommon to see multiple offers still, and those absorption rates are sticking right around 2 months. Just for reference, those balanced markets between buyers and sellers are, depending on who you talk to, anywhere between 4 and 6 months of available inventory. So interesting market out there that is starting to slow down just a little bit, even though we expected to see that a couple months ago, and we did start seeing that in the data, I would argue back in March, but starting to feel that just a little bit. So interesting space out there. But yes, if you are having any thoughts at all of making a move in maybe the near future, maybe sometime this year, maybe in the next few years, might benefit you to have that casual conversation about what is working and what is not working in the current market and the probabilities of where things might go from here. We sit at such a unique point where there is so much pent up demand. Would-be buyers, will use that context, that just feel like they can't afford it, with affordability being where it is these days. And other would-be buyers who would be selling the old house, and perhaps they feel a little bit, we'll use the word handcuffed, into their current very advantageous interest rate. And mentally, for many, myself included, it can be tough to make the leap for paying off that, without using a number, advantageous interest rate and buying at the current 30-year fixed, roughly like 7%. So interesting stuff. So tons of pent up demand out there. Something in the near future, I don't know when it will be, is going to open up those floodgates, mark my words, but that's kind of making a projection for far in the future. But anyways, interesting stuff. Interesting market. Anything at all that I can ever do to help you, you feel free to reach out. Thanks so much.